Yo, you beautiful people. I am going to walk you through three of the worst running mistakes I've ever made. I am an ultra runner. I've been running for 10 years, very consistently, the last 3.5 years to about 4 years. I've set a couple ultra course records, ran 10 marathons in 10 days, hit a 933-day running streak. I've been running a ton, and obviously I've learned from this. And I want to walk you through some of the worst mistakes I've made as a runner, so hopefully you can avoid them. Or if you're making these same mistakes, maybe I can convince you as to why you need to fix it. I made this nice, beautiful looking PowerPoint, so let's get into it. The first mistake I want to talk about is not stretching right after running. Everyone knows, if you're a runner, everyone's heard how important it is to stretch. It can reduce injury, speed up recovery, keep your range of motion good, right? It can make you a stronger runner. And obviously we need to stretch. But the key thing I want to point out is I'm a certified yoga teacher, and so I have my yoga sessions throughout the week. But one of the things that really made a difference for me was stretching right after a run. When you think about it, when you're fresh off a run, that's when your muscles are contracted, they're maybe tense and tight, and as your body cools down, your muscles cool down, it's going to set in that tightness or just that stage a little bit more. And so when you stretch right after your run, you get ahead of a lot of that tightness. This is obviously going to reduce injuries. It's going to speed up your recovery. And it only takes 5 to 10 minutes. Like, seriously, if right after your run you go straight into stretching, you don't even walk inside your house yet, or right when you get off the treadmill, you start stretching the main muscle groups that you've been using while running, it doesn't take that long to get a lot of benefit when it comes to just what getting your form back and making sure muscles aren't as tight, because throughout the day it's going to settle. Listen, I would rather you run half a mile or a mile less every day and get the stretching in, then get a little more extra running in, a little more distance. I think it's that valuable and that important. And if you're someone who runs 5 to 7 days a week, or really any amount of days in the week, but if you're someone who runs every day, it's especially important that you're stretching right after your run before your muscles cool and settle too much, because you have to run the next day. So you want to make sure you're in the best position to be able to run efficiently and effectively while reducing injury, right? So that's the first mistake I made. I'm glad I stretch after every single run, because I've absolutely noticed a difference. Second mistake, let's talk about not sleeping enough, because this is actually probably the worst mistake I make still to this day. I'm much better now at sleeping more and scheduling that in, but it's so important. Obviously, increases your chance of injury and slows down recovery. If you're not recovering enough, obviously you're at more of a chance that you're going to get injured. And sleep is where the healing, the repair happens. I mean, we all know the importance of sleep, even if you're not a serious athlete or running a ton. But I have a couple tips that help me, and these may not work for everyone. I get that some people are married, have kids, a crazy job. Listen, I get it. I travel a ton. It's hard for me to be perfect with my sleep, but some things that really help is going to bed and waking up the same time every day. We know we need at least 8 hours of sleep generally, and just because you can get by with 6 hours of sleep doesn't mean you should. There's this great book called Why We Sleep. I definitely recommend listening to that on Audible or reading it, because it just opens up your mind on how dangerous it is to not get enough sleep. And then when you throw in people who train or run a lot, it's even more important, so you're recovering properly and reducing your chance of getting injured. I've heard something like get 8 hours of sleep minimum, and for every hour of training you do get an additional hour. For ultra runners, I don't think that's very possible. Obviously, if I have a 3 hour long run, I'm probably not going to get 11 hours of sleep the next night. But anyways, the point is, if you're an athlete, if you're training, sleep, it's so important. So some of the things that have helped me is go to bed and wake up around the same time. That makes it easier because it's scheduled in, just like you schedule in your work or your eating or your training. Reducing blue light before bed definitely helps. I've heard a lot of people complain and say they can't sleep, they're not a good sleeper. Well, if you're stimulating your brain with a bunch of screen time right before bed, that's going to keep you up. That's going to keep the mind a little too active, I think. I don't have a problem falling asleep, but for people who do, this is definitely going to help. And even if you have to be on the computer or use your phone, just get like a blue light blocker glasses. They're a couple $100. It's worth it. It's an investment in your health. And so you can still use your screen while wearing those blue light blocker glasses, and it's going to block out a lot of that. And then the other thing that helps with people who can't sleep is only be in your bed when you're sleeping. So to get your body used to, or get it able to fall asleep as fast as possible, what you can do is you can have like a nighttime routine, because as you brush your teeth and foam roll and do XYZ before bed, once your body's familiar with that routine, once you start that routine, your body's going to start winding down. So having a routine before bed. But another thing that is helpful is only being in your bed when you're sleeping, because if you're working in bed, or if you're I don't know, reading your book in bed, that's not the worst thing. But the point is our bodies are just habitual, right? And it recognizes the same things we do over and over again. And so if you can only be in your bed when you're sleeping, as soon as you get in bed, your body's going to be like, oh, it's bedtime. I should be getting ready for sleep, opposed to working, being on your laptop, watching Netflix, right? If you're going to be in your room to do that, I'd say get another chair or something, because your body's going to recognize it's time for bed when it gets in bed. But that's only going to happen if you only stay in your bed when you're going to sleep. So those are some tips. There's a lot of things out there. You could take melatonin if you want, or wear an eye cover to totally black out your vision. There's a couple things out there, but these are some things that have helped me with sleeping. I wish I spent way more time focusing on sleep years ago, because I think I would have avoided some of the issues I had as a runner. All right, third mistake. Let's talk about using too much support. And what I mean by this is in the shoes we run in. When I first got into running, I heard the whole thing about you need a lot of support to support your feet muscles and protect your foot. And I would wear pretty bulky supportive shoes, and I think that actually hurt me. And I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why. Super cushion shoes, I just believe, are bad for you. I'm not saying you need zero cushion. I'm just saying when it's super, and this could be day shoes too, where they're pretty, got quite a thick sole on them. And the reason why is it atrophies your feet muscles, or even if you don't lose a ton of muscle, your feet muscles are not as strong as they could be, right? Think about if I wore a cast on my arm for 3 months, I would lose muscle because I had not been using that muscle, and because my wasn't bending my arm or anything, right? People have full leg casts, and if they're in that for like half a year, when they come out, they gotta build that muscle up, and it's because they weren't using it. So we understand that when we're talking about wearing casts, but for whatever reason, people don't think of it the same way when you're using very cushioned and supportive shoes. And so when your feet muscles don't have to work as hard because they're being supported, they are going to weaken and atrophy, or maybe not be as strong as they could be, right? We need there's like, I can't even remember how many shoes, or let's actually look this up. How many muscles in shoes? Or not shoes, in human foot. That's what I meant. 29 muscles. There are 29 muscles associated with the human foot. So, I mean, when you think about that, that's a lot of muscles, and if they're not working because of all this extra support and just cushion, they're going to wear down or not be as strong as they could be. So I'm a big believer in walking around in barefoot shoes. Vivo Barefoot is a great brand. There's a lot of brands out there that make nicer looking shoes, because Vivo Barefoot are kind of clown shoey in my opinion. They don't look as stylish as, I mean, and it's going to be hard to find a barefoot shoe that is as stylish as Vans or Adidas or Nike or whatever. But I think it's worth it, especially if you're an athlete and a runner. And so walking around in these barefoot shoes, there are some brands out there that make them look nicer, but they're not as cushioned and supportive. I personally don't run in barefoot shoes very often. I might do one training run a month and then just to change it up and see what it's like. I think it connects you to the ground and the earth when you're in barefoot shoes. But just walking around in them throughout your day, walking to work, walking to and from the car, throughout the grocery store, that is going to make a difference in making your feet muscles, build up and work and become stronger. If you start running around in barefoot shoes right away when your foot's been used to a bunch of support and cushion, I think that's going to be bad for you because your feet, like, I wouldn't put you under a barbell with 400 pounds to squat for your first time, right? You haven't worked up to that, so that's dangerous. I think it's the same thing with barefoot shoes. So make sure you're not going straight all the way into 60-mile weeks with barefoot shoes. And you might even need to go every other day walking around in barefoot shoes. When I first started walking around in barefoot shoes, I definitely felt pretty sore. So I had to kind of work my way into it. And over time, it's been worth it. The other thing is I'm a big believer in running in zero drop shoes. So shoes that are not like lifting your heel up too much. I know a lot of people have success with them, and I'm happy for people who have something that works for them. If you're constantly getting injured, I think it's because a lot of it is your form's off, your foundation isn't as strong as it could be, right? If you have a bad foundation with your house, it's going to crumble. I think the same thing applies for us as our human bodies, right? Is making sure our foundation is strong enough. Our foundation happens to be our feet. So zero drop shoes, I don't think it's natural, but if you're successful with them and you're not getting injured, I'm not going to argue with that. Us runners need to find what works for ourselves. Zero drop shoes have worked for me really well. And when you're walking around in barefoot shoes, you're getting used to that, not having a whole lot of support or lift on your heel. So those are three mistakes I've made and have corrected more, and hopefully got some value out of that. My name's Reese Jones. I'm an ultra runner. And if you want more content like this, whether it's stories on running or tips and tricks from my perspective, hit that subscribe button, because I'd love to help you become more fit, avoid injury, and just overall enjoy this great sport of running. So appreciate your time. I know it's valuable, and I'll see you later. Peace.